Welcome to the Woodpreneur Podcast, the best podcast for the business and marketing side of the sawmill, lumber, and wood industry. What's a woodpreneur? If you have a business where you make money as a woodworker, sawmill owner, selling slabs, or a content creator, then you're a woodpreneur. My name's Steve Larosiliere, and I started Woodpreneur Life, Acres of Timber, and the Woodpreneur Podcast just for makers, wood entrepreneurs, and small business owners just like you. We're on a mission to empower thousands of wood businesses to grow sustainably and put out great products. Each week, I interview makers, sawyers, content creators, and 6- and 7-figure entrepreneurs that know the wood industry inside and out. With topics covering everything from the urban lumber movement, sustainable sourcing and design, we'll discuss the ins and outs of how to grow, monetize, and fully immerse yourself in the woodpreneur lifestyle. If you're a hobbyist, a full-time wood business owner, part-time entrepreneur who wants to become a content creator, or quit your day job to pursue your dreams, the Woodpreneur Podcast is just for you. Thanks so much for listening. Now enjoy this episode. Hey, welcome to a brand new episode of the Woodpreneur Podcast. This is your host, Steve Larosiliere. Guest is Clark Cottongim from Woodstock Cabinets. How you doing, Clark?
Good, Steve. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you on. Tell us the backstory about Woodstock Cabinets. How'd you get started?
So Woodstock was started kind of loosely under a different name in the late 60s. We're estimating around 1967 by my great uncle Manley, real name Manley, after he returned from the war. He started selling millwork and shop-built cabinets around Oklahoma and Arkansas to carpenters that were job-building cabinets, and tried to tell them that you can be a lot more efficient and trim and install a lot more houses if you'll buy your cabinets from a shop and not set up table saws and build everything on site. So he started in the 60s, and kind of fast forward in the early 70s when my dad got out of college, started selling cabinets for Uncle Manley out of Oklahoma. He was still buying cabinets from his uncle in Arkansas, where the production facility was. And my dad ended up buying the business in the mid-'80s when the economy was struggling and Woodstock got really, really big and was having a hard time staying in the black. And so my dad actually ended up buying Woodstock in the mid to late 80s. And I came on board in around 2006, early 2006, and started in the shop for a couple of years. And then after 2 years, moved into the office and started designing and selling, going out on the field measures and job sites with him. And unfortunately, my dad passed away in 2021. And so now it's just me at Woodstock. And until that point, my dad and I were kind of co-owners legally, and kind of the way the business ran is he was like 51%. I was 49%. After he passed, I basically inherited his ownership of the business. And so it's just me now.
Wow, that's an immense history there.
It is. It goes way back.
And my condolences on losing your dad.
This is wild. We had a real rare relationship in that we really, really enjoyed working together every single day. We had disagreements. We never fought, so to speak. He was a lot of fun, huge heart, a ball of energy, and we had lunch together almost every day. And so it was difficult when he passed, in that I lost a business partner, a dad, and truly a best friend. I mean, I loved my dad enough that we would finish working, 40 to 50 hours a week, and he would come over on Fridays to hang out with my wife and my kids. We went on vacations all over the country, out of the country. He's a blast. It's been an adjustment, and everyone in the company, we've got about 26 now, they really, really miss him. He was a very, very beloved, and not just a grumpy old cabinet guy. He was a lot of fun, and it's been an adjustment on a lot of fronts, just learning things without his leadership.
Wow. Sounded like an awesome guy.
He's amazing. He was awesome. He's a really, really cool, unique. He's impossible to put into words. Everybody talks about.
What's his name?
Or Scott
Cottongim, right?
Scott Cottongim. That's my middle name also. So I have a lot of his older customers that are guys in their 70s and 80s. I had a guy that called that was 90, and we have a lot of similar mannerisms, and our voices are real similar. So this older gentleman is 90 years old, and he gets on the phone and he says, I said, good afternoon, this is Clark. And he's like, Scott? I said, no, it's Clark. He's like, Scott? And he's obviously an older guy and a little bit confused. And I said, no, I said, it's Clark. I'm actually Scott's son. And he's like, I was doing business with your dad in the 70s and blah, blah. What is Scott up to? Actually, Scott passed away 3 years ago and all this stuff. And so it's crazy how there's a ton of longevity, and he's got tons of clients and households and builders and remodel contractors, designers that really, really loved him. And they basically worked with Woodstock because, we have a great product and a really great reputation. But what I heard more than anything was, God, I loved your dad. Just what an incredible guy, brilliant in what he does. And he brought a lot of positive energy and excitement to the job site and to projects, which I really, really try to remember that and keep that legacy going.
Wow. That's what a blessing to be able to spend that much time with your dad. And
I agree.
In a family business. And you're like, it's really, it's kind of a true blessing and opportunity. And, I didn't even know what to say. It's just like, what a great gift to be able to carry on that tradition.
I agree. Yeah.
With his legacy and his family. That's
really awesome. I was going to say the last point I'll say about it, because I know probably this wasn't the exact intention of us chatting today, is,
dude, this is what it's kind of all about. Like,
yeah, well,
truly, so
good. Cause what's cool is, you talk to some other people and they're friendly with their parents, and, they see them, let's say, every weekend, or maybe on holidays, or maybe they're out of state and they see them Thanksgiving and Christmas and maybe a summer break. I'm really grateful and lucky that, I was 39 when my dad passed. And while I would love for my dad to have been alive long enough to see my youngest son is 4. And it would have been wonderful if my dad could have known him till he was 10 or 15, where my son could know him more and my dad could have known my youngest. I've got 3 little kids, but they could all have known him more. I would do it all over again, in that I got an extremely intense amount of time with my dad from age 0 to 39 packed in. And I spent more minutes and hours and days and weeks with him than most people do if their father or their mom lived to be 95. I got
1,000%
every day, and it was just really concentrated and compacted. And we had just this very warm, loving relationship. And it wasn't spread thin at all. It was just real thick until I'm 39. And he passed in 30 days time, found out he was sick. It's kind of the way he lived. He worked out. I'm very blessed and very fortunate the way his life was. And honestly, I wouldn't change things. So, that.
So I lost my dad in 2021 as well. And I did not have that time with him. And he had a business, and I'm a business owner, but we clashed. We didn't see eye to eye, any business, because we were both strong personalities. And so for me, it was like, when you look back at the impact that, they have, isn't it pretty wild to still continue to learn more about yourself through the passing of your father as time goes on? Like, you think it gets better, but there's so many different layers to grief and entrepreneurship and being a father yourself. Cause I have 3 kids myself as well. Right.
Yeah.
And it's pretty wild, isn't it?
Yeah. You catch yourself making decisions, and you're really, it's crazy. Like you catch yourself making decisions and you're framing them. How would dad approach this? What would dad do? And it's like this combination of, you want to honor their legacy and make them proud from wherever they are. Right. But at the same time, at least in my instance, because I worked with him directly, he did things really well. And so you're like, I want to use his frame of reference and judgment, because he did things right. And we're here after 50 plus years. And so, if it's not like if it ain't broke, don't fix it type of deal. But like, obviously his formula and the way he ran business and the way he managed employees and clients really, really worked because I really consider our company to be an exception to the rule in this industry and for family business. It's, we joke about, family owned and operated for over 50 years because no one else will hire us. But the way we do it has really worked, and we've not only survived, we've thrived. When I came on in 2006, we had about 6 guys in the shop and 2 in the office. And now we're up, mid 20s, give or take. A lot of that has to do with the way my dad took care of people and prioritized humans and quality, and knew that profit will follow if you take care of everything else. And so I learned about myself, and there's no better little gift during the day when I'll talk to one of my dad's buddies or a client, and they'll come in and they'll always apologize and say, my gosh, I've got a story about your dad, or this reminds you this time about your dad. And they feel bad because they feel like they're dredging things up. But I always tell them, like, hey, I'm 3 years out and I'm through the grief process where it's nothing but warmth and joy and happiness because I'm grateful of what I had. And so I always say, please give me that story. Like, I'm hungry and thirsty for these little tidbits. And people knew my dad in ways I didn't. Yeah. And I knew my dad in ways they didn't. But I love this third party perspective because it's always a consistent message about my dad. And it's just all these fun little joyous things that he did, and really the way he made people feel. And it just reaffirms that legacy that I believed and thought about him. And so it just feels really good. So yeah, it's crazy. You're exactly right. As far as you just continue to learn about yourself and parenthood and all that, just from
For sure.
Having some distance from the passing.
For sure.
Yeah.
So tell us, what's the main product service? What's the bread and butter for Woodstock?
We've stayed relatively consistent in our offerings, but we've expanded, let's say, in the last 6 years in what we do because of a market pull. But we started out as a custom residential cabinet shop, and we are still a custom residential cabinet shop. That we started out up until about 8 years ago. We did face frame cabinetry for homes in light commercial, and I'd call light commercial meaning a lawyer's office, a chiropractor's office, things like that. Not getting involved in schools or hospitals or any sort of commercial millwork, even though we've done a little bit of that because we've had residential clients say, hey, I'm building out a small retail store. Can you do it? And we do that. But we do it on a schedule and timeline and style that fits our shop. So we're a face frame cabinet shop, and we really cut our teeth on overlay and square and beaded flush inset. And that's kind of what we did. Again, probably not exact timeline, but 6 or 7 years ago, we started doing frameless cabinets. And a lot of that's because we brought on a gentleman kind of to help us with our operations that was an expert in frameless. He's Canadian. He came to Oklahoma and was like, I've never seen face frame cabinets. So he really educated myself, my shop, and 2 other sales guys on how to measure, how to design, how to sell, how to build, all that stuff. And then around the same time, maybe 8 years ago, we started offering paint and stain, finish work. We were raw up until then. We were fortunate. Oklahoma.
Did you outsource that before?
You outsource it, but it had nothing to do with this. So we would basically say, hey, we don't handle paint or stain, but here's a list of 5 guys or girls that we really like, that we work around, that I would recommend. And we would hand it off and be done with it. The evolution of that is we then found a finisher that we loved that had a shop about 5 miles from us. We'd load the cabinets on a truck, drive him to his shop. He'd finish them, reassemble them. We'd drive over there. We would wrap them with blankets and pick them up and deliver them to the job site. Later on, we ended up moving that finisher into our shop and taking it under our roof still as a subcontractor. And that relationship kind of ran its course, and we kind of grew beyond what he could finish at the quality and timeline that we needed. So we changed that gentleman out about 2 years ago for another subcontractor under our roof. There's about a 6,000 foot area that he's what I kind of consider a captive subcontractor, in that he's a 1099 sub. He gives us a fixed price, but we fill his plate on production. So we push as much back to him as we possibly can. But if there's a slow Thursday or Friday, he sends his guys and gals home, and we're not having to worry about keeping him busy. So basically, custom cabinetry for residential. We've added frameless and finishing in the last 6 to 8 years.
And light commercial.
Very light commercial. We did some stuff through like Oklahoma State University for one of their football complexes, but I subcontracted that out. We've done, like, there's a Catholic parish. I've done cabinetry, but the parish is basically like the rectory, right? It's a home built for the priest. It's technically falls under commercial, but we're doing cabinets like it's just a regular house. And yeah, we've done law offices. I did a little retail home goods store in Tulsa and stuff like that. But it's not. I did a couple law offices out of town. But when people send us a bid package for an O'Reilly's store or a school in Western Oklahoma, I politely decline and say, hey, we're not set up for it. We're not competitive price wise, and we also I don't really like the pay scale of that level of commercial.
Yeah.
We just kind of stay out of it, and we've been able to do that forever so far.
Yeah. That takes a lot of discipline to say no, right?
Yeah. The courage to say no is one that I've really learned from my dad. And I am by nature a people pleaser. Had a real hard time saying thanks, but no. And watching my dad for all those years of working together get in a pickle from saying yes to things he didn't want to say yes to, I've learned to say, hey, thank you so much for the email. Thank you so much for the call. That's just not something I can help you with, or I'm not interested in. However, I do like to solve their problem. Why don't you call this guy or this girl? They specialize in, would you like a Murphy bed? Call Alex over at Murphy Wall Beds. Hey, would you like a custom table? Call Justin at the Wooden Toolbox. Like, there's guys that do that. And like, while I don't want to do it, I like to help them solve their problem.
Yeah.
And so, but I've been a lot better about saying no to things.
Yeah. That's really great. And so what's the difference between outbound marketing and just the fact that you've been around for so long and the word of mouth? Like, what percentage of your business is like outward marketing versus, inbound word of mouth?
We definitely probably have about an 80% word of mouth referral business. Again, I'm very, very lucky in that I stepped into a business and let's say the business was already at second base, right? And I am proud of myself. I've done a good job to grow, expand, continue that business, but I would never be naive enough to think like, this is all on my back. I did this. I mean, I came in to a strong established business with a great reputation, and I've really just tried to expound upon that.
Yeah,
and get better at following up and better at tightening timelines and saying what we're going to do and doing what we're going to say. All those, cheesy canned answer type things. We have gotten a lot of work through just keeping relevant on social media sites and having a relationship with designers and builders that are active social media posters. And so there's a lot of business comes in. They'll say, I saw you on Instagram, I saw you on Facebook and things like that. So social media has been like massive for us. At the very least, awareness. I'm real big on, I'm completely comfortable if a client says, we'd love to use you, however, you don't fit our budget. We can't afford to use you on this project. What I'm not happy with is to say, oh my gosh, I didn't even know you guys existed. And so I'd rather them know about me and say, hey, we would love to buy a BMW. It doesn't fit our budget on this project. Than say, I've never heard of BMW. That's the marketing fail to me, because we really can't be everything to everyone. And so I try to realize that like we have a niche and let's market and sell to that niche and not try to be everything to everyone. We don't actively advertise other than if there's a home issue in a local Tulsa magazine and we're featured in it. I am big now on saying, okay, let's go ahead and put a an advertisement into that just to kind of drive it home. And if they don't read the article adjacent to it, they'll at least see our logo over and over and over. But I don't put a tremendous amount of finances into marketing, but I try to stay active on Yelp, Facebook, Instagram, House, things like that, just to keep us relevant and around and swirling around. Pinterest, we have a Pinterest board, things like that. Just the normal low-hanging fruit that is easy, free advertising.
Yeah. And so a lot of your core relationships, are they builders and designers and contractors?
Yeah. It's a hybrid. We have a lot of builders. We've shifted heavily from new construction to more remodel contractors. We do some new construction spec homes, but generally speaking, we're kind of out our but we don't really fit the budget on a new construction spec.
Yeah.
We do fit the budget many times on a remodel spec because of the areas of town that maybe demand a little bit more money and price per square foot where the builder can justify using us. When I first started, my dad did probably 85% new construction and mostly spec. I'd say we were a little more competitive price-wise then, and this is like 2006. Since then, there's been probably 4 or 5 very low-price competitors come in that build a little more of a builder's shop grade cabinet than we do. And in speaking with my dad and just our own research, like I realized that's kind of, in my opinion, a little bit of a race to the bottom. And it wasn't a race I wanted to run because, you talk to these other shops and find out what they're charging in a job. We would estimate a job and then come to find out this other shop's doing it for a different price. And we're basically saying, you're one mistake away from losing money on that job, or that job's already completely below our cost. And in my opinion, that business model sometimes isn't really sustainable. And
yeah,
what we've done has worked. We're the oldest shop in Tulsa.
Tulsa's growing, isn't it?
It is growing. I wouldn't say rapidly. We've got 1 million in the metro area. Tulsa proper, the city limits, that's not 1 million. But if you take all the surrounding suburbs, which we're talking 8 to 12 minute drive around, you're up up over 1 million. And they've done a good job of really marketing this Tulsa remote, where people get a $10,000 stipend if they come and move here and stay for a year, things like that. So yes, we're attracting people, especially since COVID. It's like Tulsa's cheap, it's safe, it's easy to own a home. We've got a great airport with a lot of connections. So there's a lot of things that draw people to Tulsa now that weren't there in the early 2000s when I kind of got into the game.
Yeah. Yeah. Talk about so on a day-to-day level, what are you doing? And then how does it flow through the rest of your team?
Yeah. So, I am your typical small business owner in that some days I am ordering t-shirts and hats for the guys, or trying to work on the website, or refilling the water in the coffee maker. But generally speaking, above the little nitpicky things, I still have clients that I regularly service: builders, remodel contractors, homeowners, designers. There's also walk-ins, and my office manager tries to do a really good job. And if there's a walk-in, kind of push it to one of the other 2 sales guys. But sometimes they come in and I'm the guy, boots on the ground, and I'll take care of them. My yesterday, for example, was I priced up a job, emailed it to the client. And then after that, after lunch, I went and field measured a job, came back to the office, modified that job in my computer, and sent off a final print to the homeowner to approve and pay the deposit on. And then, today, once that job is signed off on and deposited by the client, I'll work closely with my engineer that basically processes the orders and checks for my mistakes, before it goes into the shop. And so I'm definitely not on the treadmill stage where if I'm out of town, nothing's getting done, but I'm in there kind of pulling on the cart and helping to put fuel into the fire.
You're pushing the train along.
I'm pushing the train along, and it's a mixed feeling. The last 2 quarters, and again, it's foreign. The last 2 quarters, Scott, who offices right in the wall behind me, outsold me 2 quarters in a row for the first time in my 18 years. For 18 years, I sold more than anyone, including my father. And I got beat. It's exactly where you want to be, but it feels uncomfortable. And, it feels like it'd be a bad sign. However, the last 2 quarters and the last 2 years for that matter have been our largest in company history. So obviously we're moving in the right direction, even if some of the responsibilities and the sales load is shifting to other guys.
Yeah. That must be a little humbling, right?
It is, but it's, it makes you proud. It's exactly what you want. Scott's like a tremendous salesman, extremely smart, and he started in the shop. And he is the rare exception. I mean, I am a big believer in like the Peter principle, where just because someone's good at their job doesn't need to mean they need to be elevated and moved to like management, so to speak. Because normally it's like Rob, my foreman, he's 35, 36 years with us. I say all the time, like, Rob put braces on my teeth and put me through college. Like, he's this unbelievable shop superintendent that has a degree in woodworking technology from Pitt State in Kansas. He is an extremely talented woodworker. He doesn't need to be sitting in an office selling and designing. Just because he's perfect at his job does not mean he needs to be promoted to a different position, which is really hard because naturally everybody wants to do that as this feather in the cap, pat on the back type of deal.
Yeah.
Because people flounder and they get uncomfortable and they say, hey, that's not what I signed up for. Scott came out of the shop, and while he was this incredible cabinet maker, he's just an engineer by heart. He's got the charisma, the friendliness, the follow through, the attention to detail to sell, measure, design. He runs projects in and out of the shop, and I don't even know they exist. He's got people now that call for him that used to call for me, and they know they'll get focused attention from him where I'm kind of spread thin sometimes. He's so good that he has taken over clients that were previously mine. So I don't know how I got off on that tangent, but I think it's just an opportunity to brag on my team.
That's cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
What was aside from Scott, which there are a lot of Scots in your business, but there's a
Scots. That's it. There's Scots.
Just two Scots. Talk about the best investment that you made equipment wise in your business.
So equipment wise, 2012, my father and myself were selected to be on a reality TV show that filmed in New York. It was on CNBC Prime, which was going to be their like Monday or Tuesday night primetime show. It's called Crowd Rules.
Okay.
And it's Shark Tank, but you're pitching your idea to the studio audience, which was 100 people.
Okay.
And if the crowd selected you and you're pitching it against 2 other entrepreneurs on the stage at the same time, they kind of take turns asking you questions, and they have hosts that are asking you questions and you have to answer them on your feet.
Yeah.
So we won that show.
Amazing.
So we got, so the show never aired. They aired 1 or 2 episodes, and we were going to be the 3rd. And the show did so poorly, the first 2 episodes, that they canned it. And we all joke and said, man, if they just would have put Woodstock on the first episode, this would be soaring. It'd be a huge hit.
Yeah.
So it never aired, and they would never give us the footage because it's property of the network. After we won, the producer, the gals that were kind of our liaison, and they were a ton of fun because they came to Tulsa and they filmed us in our office in our shop. They said, we're so sorry. If you read your contract, because we don't have the advertising dollars and there's not revenues, we can't pay you the $50,000. And I said, hey, we got a trip to New York City for, me and my dad, where they flew us to New York. We got to stay in a great hotel, hang out at the Chelsea Market. It filmed in the Food Network studios above the Chelsea Market. So it's just cool. We got per diem we went to good dinners and drank a bunch of good wine. It was just a fantastic, 3 days. I said, hey, thanks. I get it. No problem. A few weeks later, my office manager calls and said, I'm on a job site. She's like, I just got a check from CNBC for 50 grand. And I said, put it in the bank right now.
Yeah.
So I said, don't even hesitate. You drive to the bank and deposit that sucker. Don't even remote capture it. Deposit check. I call my girl at CNBC. I still had her number. And she said, we had a change of heart. We wanted to pay all the winners because we had funds left over or whatever the deal was. And congratulations, enjoy it. So we took that money. I called my equipment rep that we use out of Joplin, and I said, I want to buy CNC. So we bought I think it was close to $90,000 CNC. No clue what we're doing. I'm only 42, but I would not call myself technologically superior to anyone that's 62, right? I can do some basic stuff, but I get frustrated real quickly, and I'm more of a people person and a sales design guy than a computer and ones and zeros and G-code guy. So bought a CNC. I got trained on it, stumbled through it, but basically we went from all these years of table saws, overhead routers, radial arm saws, homemade dado machines, all that stuff, dado blades. And we started using a CNC. We're on our second CNC only in 12 years. We went up to a big 5x12. So a CNC is number one, first and foremost, the biggest changer in our business. I mean, it's crucial, especially this day and age. Number two, until 7 years ago, we were in a 7,800 foot shop, and that is a shop. And then our office was 2 miles away in a 750 square foot home that my dad had bought in the 80s as a rental property. And we turned the 3 bedrooms into 3 offices for myself, my dad, and my office manager. So until 7 years ago, if there's a problem on a cabinet, we're either texting photos back and forth, or I'm hopping in the truck and driving 9 minutes to the shop to put eyes on it. 7 years ago, my dad's friend called. We were in the middle we paid an architect to design an addition to that shop and grow. And we were going to add an office and more shop space to that old shop. My dad's friend called and said, hey, you guys still thinking about a bigger shop? And I said, yep. He said, hey, I've got a great building in a great part of town that the sale just fell through because my dad's friend did all the mechanical, heat and air, plumbing, electrical in the building. And he said, I know the owner. He's real frustrated. The sale fell through with a VC group out of Dallas. Here's what you can get the building for. Call him. If you like it, that's what he'll take. We went over that day. We walked through the building, walked out to the front door, said, Dad, what do you think? And he said, that's the building. We're buying it. So we bought a building that is 32,800 square feet, has a 5,000 square foot office, and it's incredible facility. So we went from 8,000 feet to 32. So we went up 4X on the building or on the production. And we went from a 750 square foot home to a full showroom. And behind the camera, I'm looking through a glass wall at cabinets being made. And I can see cabinets coming off the benches. I can tweak things. I can tell a homeowner, your cabinets are 50% done. I can go make a change. That sounds so little, and people are shocked that we ever did it another way, but that's just the facilities we had back then. And every day I pull up to my building and I'm like, God, I love this building. And I am 12 feet from every cabinet. The line ends in front of my desk. I can walk out there and say, this looks terrible. Put a new end on this. I hate that pull out. This looks great. Hey, don't forget, they need extra toe skin. Hey, that lock is supposed to be gold, not silver, all those things. And you take it for granted if that's all you've ever had. But a CNC and the shop being with the office and having a big shop that we've filled now are the two pieces of equipment that we 100% would not be where we are today without it.
That's so cool. That's very cool. Yeah, it must feel so good to be so close to the finished product, right?
Well, yeah, and then literally on the finish side, 6,000 feet of this 33,000 square feet is our dedicated finish shop. If we didn't move, we were so jam-packed in that shop. We had 2 semi-trailers and a shipping container, like a Maersk box,
Yeah.
full of finished projects and equipment. We were growing out of that shop so bad. So the concept, the idea, the thought of even dreaming about painting or staining, finishing cabinets, it wasn't even an option. You couldn't even dream about it because you're like, I mean, forget finish. We don't have room for cabinets. We would stack the cabinets 4 cabinets high in the loading bay with a forklift and pallets just to get them off the floor so we could build the next job. Wow. And if the builder ever called and said, hey, my flooring is delayed, my permit's delayed, I can't take the cabinets for 3 weeks, pardon my French, we were completely screwed. I mean, we're like, hey, the cabinets are coming. They're coming to your garage. I don't care.
Yeah.
We don't have room. Yeah, they're coming.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. Very cool. What a great story, great legacy.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's so awesome. And the growth too. I mean, I think what I appreciate about your story is the patient approach to growing a business, right? And
absolutely.
It feels like you didn't overextend yourself. You made use of what you had.
Yes.
You used the space of what you had. And I guess one question before we sort of end is like, what was the crucial point in which you actually started to scale? Like, do you remember that moment? Like, what was the thing that helped you from, when you get a project and like you get the check, and as soon as you get the check, like the money's out, and then it's just kind of like this little cycle. Like, what was that moment? Do you remember that moment or that project or the decision that like helped you to get more leverage?
Got a couple things. I hope this is answering kind of what you're asking. Again, this is me being proud of my legacy and what my father taught me. My dad was a frugal guy, and he was a massive believer in you grow at the speed of cash. That phrase is kind of stolen from like the Entree Leadership podcast, which I like to listen to. But my dad never borrowed money. He didn't borrow money for the shop, for the trucks, for equipment, for a CNC. We grew at the speed of cash. He paid his house off in 8 years, a humble house. I mean, in the 80,000s. He would save up and buy a clean vehicle, but he'd buy a Ford Explorer for whatever they were back then, $1,000, and just pay cash for it and drive it till the wheels fell off. He took that approach in the business. So we were never stressed about the finances of it. We always make payroll. The guys get bonused. We try to pay our guys above the average in town. We take care of our people, and the people take care of us. So the things that I would say made Woodstock grow, because we're doing about X what I was when I started, volume-wise. One, we brought on another salesman, me. And I'm not special other than we took one salesman, my father, who was selling every single thing by himself every single day, and we doubled our sales force. And when you talk about duplicating yourself in a business, I mean, literally, I am my father's son. So there's an intuition there where I'm selling and designing the exact way he did and would, because he taught me and I'm his blood. So we doubled our sales force, and then we got busy enough and we added 50% more by bringing Scott in from the shop to the office. That's massive. And then the next thing is, and this is a whole story for probably another podcast, but we had a man dropped into our lap, the gentleman I told you out of Canada, that through a church group, one of our builders has a men's group on Wednesday nights, and the builder called and said, are you hiring? And I thought he's talking about a cabinet maker, but he meant this gentleman, Ken, this Canadian who's retired. He moved to Tulsa to be closer to his kids and grandkids. He came in. He is basically a consultant. He's a subcontractor. He started with this 7 years ago. And he has a relentless growth, efficiency mindset that is unquenchable. I'm the good cop. He's the bad cop. He is the spreadsheet guy. He crunches the numbers. He tears the shop apart on a monthly basis to reorganize the way we do things. He changes processes and procedures. He basically says, Clark, you sell, I will take care of production. So we are a massive amount, the ability to produce what me and Scott and Ben is my other sales guy, sell, is because of Ken. he's put the right people in the right place. It's, Jim Collins, good to great. He finds a seat for everybody on the bus. If they don't have a seat, they're out. He has basically said, whatever you sell, I'll get it built. And we've adjusted our facility for that. And so sales and then the ability to ramp up production due to Ken's vision and organization and efficiencies is what have been key turning points in our history.
That's so cool.
It's all people. I mean, that it's like,
yeah,
if you got the right people, it works. If you don't, it does not work. You can't force it, because if you just add sales to an old system that's failing, you just amplify your problems. And I would have done that because I don't have that manufacturing mindset like Ken. The wheels fall off if you're just dumping fuel into the fire. You just can't handle it. But he has scaled people and equipment and layout and flow as we've sold more. And I'm really, really, really grateful.
It's like that, right? Like he thinks in those terms. So he's the best person for that position.
So, I get alarm notifications on my phone most weekends, most days. I will get a notification that Ken is in here at 4 a.m, 5 a.m. A lot of times he is gone before I even get in, and he is never satisfied, but not in an unhealthy way. And he'll come in and think something and have quiet time in the shop and walk it and rethink things. And he lives for purposeful change, not change for the sake of change, but purposeful change and incremental betterness, and just tweaking and tweaking and tweaking and squeezing the limit a little bit more and getting a little bit better. Every part of the shop has been touched with his hands and is better than before he started. And the shop is better. I mean, I have other cabinet guys come and want to tour my shop and talk to me about how we do things, because we do a lot of extremely high quality cabinets with not a ton of people, and a lot of that is because of Ken and having total kick-ass people. Our team is just, the guys and girls I'm undeserving of the quality of humans in the shop. I mean, we don't have the guy or the girl. We have the guys and the girls that are complete thoroughbred all-stars, and they're all underneath this roof, which is just awesome.
So cool.
It makes work a lot of fun. I love, every day is fun.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
All right. So this is a part of the podcast where I give you any marketing or business advice. Is there anything that you'd like to think through or brainstorm about that could help improve your already amazing business?
Yeah. I mean, what we're trying to work on now is we're trying to rebuild it's kind of marketing things, in that we're trying to continue to drive us up in, just your generic Google search. When I started with my dad in 2006, we're the only shop in town on Facebook and Instagram, and whenever Instagram came out, but Facebook, let's say, and then once Instagram came out, and then I make sure and get us on Yelp and Angie's List and things like that. Well, now kind of everyone's on there, so we've kind of pushed down. So I'm trying to, and again, this is about awareness. I mean, people email all the time about, like, could you use 20 more leads or 10 more quality leads? I'm like, I don't care about quality or, leads. I want awareness, because if we can get people in the door, we can sell the job. Where we don't thrive is we get a generic email from someone, I send them a price, we're going to be 15 to 30% higher every single time. If I can get them in the showroom, in the shop, they understand what we do, why we do it, how we're different, and what you're paying for. Most of those projects we will get if we fit their budget. So I'm trying to keep awareness up there and for one, reconfigure the website that it fits the algorithms and SEO, and it pushes us up higher in the search. And I'm also trying to do that with Pinterest, but I don't understand Pinterest well enough. I've built out a board or pages with different boards and things like that, and trying to help that kind of spider web the internet where we're relevant and we're around more. So I guess a lot of it, the question would be, do I go in-house myself and I rinky-dink figure out how to use AI for SEO, or is that something you think is worth paying someone to do to get you driven up in search results? How do you feel about web search results and things like that?
Yeah, so I am looking at your search search terms.
Yeah, we're probably down on number 5 or 6 in the city, and it's crazy.
Yeah. It's also okay. Cabinets are number 6.
There, even worse.
So the one thing that I think a lot about is upping the content output for you, right? I know you said that you're redoing your website. So I think there's a combination of like search results, and then there's like your website ranking, and then there's like content. And so like one way that people can learn about you is obviously through Google search, and the other one is just like by increasing the output of the content that you do put out.
Right.
And so you said you have 26 people, right?
Yeah, roughly.
So to me, I think about your storytelling capabilities, right? Your history is pretty rich and deep, and it's not conveyed.
Okay,
And
true.
it's almost like doing the history a disservice by not literally having a video a week about the business out there. Because if you put yourself out there and you get quotes and you're 30% more than anybody else, how you overcome that, especially to a new client, because the long-term value of a client is really high because they keep buying from you, right?
Exactly.
But for the new folks, you get them in from your branding and your storytelling, and they fall in love with you, and they even justify the higher pricing because they know you and your business even more. And so,
yeah, you're kind of leaning on heritage at some point.
Yeah. And
Or,
it's funny.
or making it front and center rather than it's because it's tucked in there on the website if you search for it, but obviously no one's stumbling on the about us, right? That's not of interest to them.
Yeah. And that to me is like that the homepage should be about like the history, the legacy, the heritage, and then the stories of the people. I mean, the guy that's been around for 35 years, right? Like he's like, I want to hear stories about him.
Yeah.
These are all things that in a storytelling world that we live in, it's your brand differentiator.
Yes.
And the person who could tell better stories wins than anybody else.
Yeah.
And then it serves a second purpose, is that like, I hope on your new website that there's a blog, right?
Well, that's exactly. So one of the biggest reasons to redo the site is the newer Squarespace templates have blog format, and they, it's funny. People are like, I'm like, blog. I'm like, I thought the blogs died in 2012. They're like, no, they're back. People are wanting a little more written content. And so I'm like reluctant because I know it's a big ask, but the good thing is, I guess once you make the blog post, it's evergreen, it lives, it's there. You've got that content.
Well, and the other thing too is like, just think about, so like I'm looking at your search engine sort of rankings, like the total number of backlinks and the total number of keywords. Your backlinks should be in the thousands, given like how many people you've done business with since 1967.
Yeah,
right?
we've got around 8,000 job numbers, right? We're in the thousands now, which is like, I mean, that's a massive amount.
That's a massive. And so okay, for one is make sure that your website has a blog and you are telling more stories, right? B is I would make sure that
I'm going to jot a couple of these down just so I don't.
I'll follow up with you.
Okay.
Yeah. So like tell more stories, do more video, like literally do more video, like of what's in the shop, the projects that you're working on, what have you.
It's uncomfortable. Like, all these guys I follow, they do videos, and I'm like, I think I'd be fine with videos, but I don't necessarily want to be front and center on the camera. I think a lot of that's just, you just break the ice. And I guess if you do it enough, you're like, whatever, you just need,
listen, you do it 20 times and it'll just get easier. So for me, it's like that's the way that I would look at it. I would look at it like, hey, look, I need to up my branding, right? I need to share my story and my legacy. And I need to put out more articles of my people, my process, and my product.
Right.
That's it. Like, that's it. If you do that 10% more or even 20% more than what you're doing right now, you'll be number one. Right.
Yeah.
Like, you'll dominate. And that's the way that I would approach it. And then also too, just like tell more stories about Oklahoma. Right? Like, tell more stories about your community, your church, your people. Like, those types of things actually matter because they want it. People want, when they have the kitchen, to be like, oh yeah, this is a family run business. They did my kitchens. Oh, that, it was taken over from, the son. Right. Like,
Right.
And all of that sort of matters because these interior designers and contractors, like, they're selling a story to their customers.
Right. Yeah.
You're actually helping them sell the story even more.
That's a good way to put it. Cause yeah, you're right. It actually matters. Like it could be something as simple as a tile setter. And if a contractor says, if I text him and say, hey, Brad, do you have a tile setter? You're like, oh man, you need to call Noah. This guy's amazing. He's a 3rd generation guy, nicest guy ever. He's a little more expensive. You'll love him. And then you're like, okay, I'm sold. Right. And we're not talking about price. We're not talking about availability. We're talking about like, I want that guy, right? I want that heritage. I want that reputation.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly it. I mean, why do you think people like Louis Vuitton can charge so much more money? Because they go into like the craftsmanship. It's like all luxury is literally all about this story.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So anyway, is that helpful?
That's extremely helpful because the gist of it, I intuitively knew, but you've broken it down simply in ways that are actually actionable. Because what you generically hear is you need more content. You need more you need to tell your story. And I'm like, what is that? Like, and you're like, where, when, how, and you're like, you could do, you've broken it down into simple, actionable things, which are real helpful. So I appreciate it.
Yeah. I mean, literally you can look at the, days of the week and say, even if you want to start simple, it's like Team Tuesday. So like, I'm going to go around and I'm going to show a video of a different member of the team. Right.
Right. Yep.
Or you could do Takeover Thursday. Right. And you have, one of your team members, you give them the phone with the login and they just start recording content that day.
Right. Yeah.
Like you're going on a job and you have somebody that follows you to do measurements and you walk them through, like you're in your own little world. You're wearing your branded clothes and like you're doing your thing. And then when it's, do you install or no? Just deliver, right?
Well, we have a list of recommended installers that we subcontract to, but we don't use in-house guys for install.
Sure. So to me, I'm like, yeah, this is being delivered. And then you show the final install. And then, because when it's installed, you're looking at everything, correct?
Absolutely.
So yeah, you going in and you showing yourself pushing the drawers and like, all of the things that you normally do, but just documented.
Just because we're doing it anyways, why not film?
And you don't want to talk about leverage. Like leverage is, I know I've noticed you mentioned a couple of, books that you've read, Good to Great, Peter Principle. There's another book that you and just an author that you should look into. His name is Naval Ravikant. And he talks about the different forms of leverage. And technology is a piece of leverage, but also content and media is a form of leverage. And once it's out, it lives forever. And so you just need to out content everybody. And that's
right.
What you do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that cool?
That's great. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Awesome. All right. Well, tell everybody your website so they can follow your amazing work.
Well, stay tuned. We're up and running, but the new one is not. So it's woodstockcabinets.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Clark, for your time. And I look forward to getting your story out to the Woodpreneur community.
Thanks, Steve. It was great talking to you.
All right. Take care.